Brad DeRoche. Welcome to my series on guitar fundamentals. This is lesson number 30, and today's lesson is going to focus on effective practicing, part 3. So first off, thank you for sticking with me. You've made it through all 30 of these lessons. That's really something. That's quite a commitment. I do hope that they've been helpful for you and that you've gotten a few tips from them and it's made you a more effective practicer. In today's lesson, we're going to focus on the performance element of practice. Now, for me, when I first started practicing classical guitar, and for many, many years actually, I never really got into what I would call performance practicing. I was good at practicing. I was good at learning new things and working on the tough spots and pieces and so forth. But I had neglected a very, very important part of practice, and that is performance practice, if you would. And it wasn't because I didn't want to do it, it's that I didn't understand the importance of it, and I didn't really know what to do. I thought just practicing pieces over and over and over was the gateway to a successful performance. And that turns out to be only really one part of it. And there are several different components that go into successful performances. When we think of a successful performance, the first part is indeed practicing. So we have to learn our pieces. And in the last lesson, the previous lesson, I talked about my method for learning, which is divide and conquer. I first start by doing my background research and get my fingerings in and things like that. Then I divide the piece into small bits, learn them all the way up to tempo right from the beginning, and then chain those chunks together into larger and larger bits or chunks until I have the entire piece. And then I talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly, going through and recording our pieces, listening to the parts that sound good, the parts that sound bad, and the parts that are truly ugly. And the ones that sound bad and ugly, we get index cards for those, and we mark down the measures that don't sound good. And it's better than just circling it, trust me, on the index cards, because with the index cards, what you should be writing down is, let's say, for instance, let me use my La Grima example again. Let's say it's measure 2. Maybe I've got a problem with right hand fingering in measure 2. This is measure 1, here's measure 2. Maybe I miss notes a lot because I don't have a good understanding what my right hand fingering is. So what I would do is I would make an index card that says measure La Grima up at the top, measure 2, right hand fingering. By doing this, what I've done is I've clarified in my mind, in words, what the problem is, and then it gives me a much better understanding of how to solve the problem in that measure. In previous years, what I would do is I would just think in my head while I'm playing along, that measure is not very good. Play it a few times, but not really let it rise to the level of consciousness what I was trying to fix and what the problem was. So you've got to write it in words, I think, or at least bring it to the level of cognitive thought so that you understand what the problem is. So anyway, you focus on the good, the bad, and the ugly in fixing pieces to get them to the level of being able to perform them well. Now, performing well for me would mean playing through with relatively few errors under performance stress. All right. I don't want to have bad memory slips. I don't want to have to stop, things like that. When you do perform, let me first say that most, myself included here, but most people think that their performance is either absolutely awful or it was the best they've ever done. And so there's like 2 ways of viewing a performance, which is a horrible template. Instead, break it up into about 10 different categories. Was it truly the worst you've ever played or truly the best you've ever played? If so, then this is a 1 and this is a 10. But there are 8 other degrees within there. And so what we should start to think about in a performance is my performance more like a 6 or a 7 or an 8 or even a 9? Or is it more on the low end, 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5? What you want to do is start consistently getting your performances to be 7s, 8s, 9s, and 10s. All right. They won't be in the beginning, but you have to focus on that. But don't focus on 10 only, your best ever, or your worst ever. That's a really terrible way of viewing performances. You'll never be satisfied. Yes, we can always get better, no question, but you can't look at your performances as pure ecstasy or complete failure. It just doesn't help us. So once I've gotten to the point where I'm performing a piece at home and I'm recording it, and I've ferreted out all of the problem spots and the errors, and I've worked on them to the best of my ability, then I need to take it up to the next level. So I'm going to continue with the good, the bad, and the ugly with performing, but now I'm going to get ready for an actual concert. So what I will do is I will divide my repertoire into 6 different parts. So however, let's say you have 6 pieces in your rep. You're working on Lagrima, maybe Spanish Romance, Recuerdos, Leyenda, etc. All right, so you've got 6 pieces in your repertoire, just as an example. You could have more, you could have less, but you're going to divide it into 6 parts. And each day, for 6 days in a row, you're going to focus on a different piece. Now, the focus is going to be that good, bad, and the ugly business that we've talked about in the past. But you're going to really spend extra time on one piece in a practice session, especially on the parts that are truly ugly. You really need to fix those at this point if you're getting ready for a concert. They can't continue to be problem spots. So you do the good, the bad, and the ugly on one chunk of your repertoire, and you polish and polish and polish that piece that day until it's as close as you can get it to perfect. All right. Then the next day, you do the next piece. So let's say it was Monday, I did Lagrima. Tuesday will be Spanish Romance. And I'm going to do the good, the bad, and the ugly and try to fix that, etc. And each day, I work on 1/6 of my program. The 7th day, you can take a rest if you want, or you can use that as a makeup day. All right. Oftentimes it's going to be a makeup day because you got called into work or whatever, so you couldn't finish one of the practice sessions from before. All right. And so now we've broken our repertoire up into 6 big chunks, and each day we focus on just one of those pieces. Now, that's one component. Then, after you've focused on this is part of the old repertoire, which is about 1/3 of your practice. The old repertoire, or the maintenance repertoire, you've got your main focus piece of the day. Then you're going to play all of the rest of the concert program as a concert, all the way through from beginning to end. Now, unless you're playing a professional level concert, this shouldn't take more than 15 minutes for most people. They usually don't have more than about 15 minutes worth of repertoire, maybe a half hour at the most. So that's got to be a part of your practice on a daily basis. I recommend recording it like it's a concert. You don't have to do that every single day, the recording part, but at least once a week, record as if it's a concert and do the good, the bad, and the ugly with that. Listen back and circle the spots that aren't good and try to fix them. All right, so this focuses on the practice part, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and fixing things, and then the performance part, which is getting us used to the stamina and what it takes to play through a whole program and playing our pieces from beginning to end in an expressive manner. We have to focus on that. The funny part about learning to perform is that it requires a different kind of focus. When we're in practice mode, we stop and we start. Like, if I play, missed that note. I'll start over. Missed that one. I'll start over. But in a concert, we can't do that. Or in a performance, even for our friends, we don't want to do that. So the focus in performance mode is playing from beginning to end in an expressive manner, come what may. So you just got to go all the way through it. And the more you learn to do this, to play from beginning to end of the piece, once it's learned, I'm not talking about learning a piece here. We're talking about a piece that's already learned. But the performance part of it means you have to develop the concentration, the focus to play from beginning to end. For me, that also meant developing the ability to think ahead. What's coming up? So I know here, okay, back down to first position. Start again. Want a little bit more volume this time. Big jump, etc. So I'm always planning my next move. And I have to learn to incorporate that into that concentration, that focus of playing. All right, so that's another big component of performing. Then there's sort of a third part. So practicing is one thing, performing the piece, developing the stamina and the concentration to play all the way through it. And then a third component is the mental work that's often neglected by musicians. And strangely, athletes are like way ahead of us in their mental skills, the way that they practice. Most of these people have a lot of coaching on it, for one. There's a lot of things written about it, etc. Anyway, the mental work for me is visualization. So I want to make sure that when I'm getting ready to perform a piece, I have to be able to play it all the way through in my head. So what that means for me most of the time is that I can see my left hand, I know where my left hand is going, and I can hear it at the same time. All right. I don't usually focus so much on my right hand unless there's something that's really tricky with that and I have to think about it. But I want to be able to see my movements in my left hand in my mind's eye and also hear the sound. So it's a visual and an auditory memory that I'm developing. And we do this away from the instrument. So we're not doing it with the instrument in our hands. Now, what I do recommend that you do when you're doing this is that you actually practice it, wiggling your fingers. So I'm playing the first part of La Grama, all right? So I'm thinking, okay, I've got thumb and middle, index, slide up, 2 and 4, then index, 2 and 4, index, back down to first position. So I'm actually practicing the movements without the instrument. Now, research shows us that it's actually helpful to do the finger movements while we're visualizing this. All right, and I'm hearing the sound in my head, etc. Now, people do focus on singing the parts through, but that's kind of a different skill, and could be added also. But for me, visualization, the mental work, is very important. Then there's also the mental work of thinking about being at the performance site. So where are you going to perform? What is the hall like? Have you been there before? You need to kind of envision that and get yourself ready for all the things that happen on a good day and a bad day. You should also know that things never go as planned. There's always something wrong, always. And you just can't let it be of your own doing. So like showing up late, not having your instrument or a fresh set of strings or whatever. Those things you have to take care of, and you need to do that stuff in advance. So you always plan for that. So proper planning is a huge part of our success. So if you're going to perform for some friends and you're going to play a few pieces, what you really need to do is to make sure that you have everything that's under your control squared away well ahead of time. All right, so that's a big part of the mental work that goes into playing well. If you show up somewhere, you don't know what the hall is like, you're not sure who your presenter is, who's going to help you out when you get there, you don't know where the place is, you're running late, you haven't changed your strings, all those things, that will lead to a really nerve-wracking performance and you probably won't play well. All right, so the mental work involves not only the visualization but also really preparing for the event itself. All right, there's hopefully a few tips that will help you a little bit. So basically what you practice doing, you practice playing a concert at home on a daily basis. So every time at the end of your practice, you play through all of your concert rep. And you focus on one piece each day, and you go through your entire program over the course of a week with focusing on one piece. You're still playing every piece every day, but you're only focusing on practicing and really fine-tuning only 1/6 of the program each day. There's just not enough time to do every single piece every single day. All right, so hopefully those little tips help you to get ready for your next performance, but you do have to practice it a lot, and the recorder is your friend. Use the recorder to record what you sound like, and then do a really good thorough examination of what is on that tape. What do you sound like? Are your rhythms right? Are your pitches right? Are you expressive in the way that you intended? And if not, well, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Get out those index cards and get to work. All right, I hope this was useful for you, and hope it makes you practice a little bit better. And I wish you all the very best, and I'll see you sometime soon. Cheers.